Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. Today I would like to continue my discussion about my DC Direct figures based on the art of Alex Ross. So in today's edition I will be covering the figures based on the Kingdom Come story in which these figures are based on. So let's get this show started. So what we have here on the far left here would be Green Lantern. Now, back then, when I wasn't aware of the Kingdom Come story, when I seen these figures for the first time in the stores, in the comic book stores way back, many years back, I was thinking this at that time that this was the Hal Jordan Green Lantern when he's already older. Much later on, I discovered, before I read the actual story, that this is not Hal Jordan. This is actually Alan Scott, the first Green Lantern, who became a Lantern before Hal Jordan, by a few decades before him. So yes, this would be him, and he comes armored and holding a sword, a very neat looking sword. It's a pity that that sword is actually pretty loose in his hand because the grip is not very tight, but regardless, what I like about these figures is, as I already mentioned about other figures based on Alex Ross art, is just the incredible detail and the facial expressions. It's just absolutely amazing. It's a pity, however, they do not have a great deal of articulation, but on the other hand, these figures were never really meant to be like Marvel Legends, to be pre-posed in so many different ways. They're sort of more like similar to Spawn figures from back in the day. They're kind of almost semi-statues. So they're relatively static. You do have some basic articulation in them. The arms can move up and down with some limitations. Legs, in some cases, can move or cannot move at all. And then the head left to right. That's roughly about it. So, moving along, we have aged Superman here. And he was in the first wave of these figures. So again, another pretty decent looking figure, even though he's quite limited in articulation itself, but he looks pretty good as far as I'm concerned. Then at the back here, upper row, we have Magog, a character I only know very little about. I do understand he ended up at some point in a fight with Superman because I believe he went too far with dealing with criminals by annihilating them. So he used excessive force to bring them down. So an interesting character to me, even though I honestly don't know a whole lot about him, but I like the way he looks with his helmet with ram horns on it, and he has some kind of a staff he's holding onto. He does have a molded handgun in his cross belt, but unfortunately that gun is not removable. Then moving along, again next to Magog over here in the second row, we have Kid Flash. Now this figure, as I was stating earlier, falls into that category of almost a statue-like figurine because it doesn't have a whole lot of movement except the arms and the head. The legs cannot move at all. There is no elbow or knee articulation whatsoever, none in the waist and none in the wrists as well. She does have a sort of a half-removed leather jacket on her, and that leather jacket partially impedes the movement of one of her arms. But still, an interesting looking character. I just wish she had been a little bit more articulated. Now over here, back to the front row, we have Shazam, with or as he's known by his human identity, Billy Batson. Based on the Kingdom Come story, Shazam and Superman become enemies, and I won't go into detail why. If you guys read the story, you'll know what I mean. He's a very well done figure, and he really pops out due to the fact that he's quite bright. Well, okay, the red color is not that bright, but I'm just trying to say the color scheme looks pretty good. And he is he really deserves the nickname that his enemies gave him in the cartoon and comics is the Big Red Cheese. He really does, in a way, resemble one, and he has sort of a smirk or a smile on his face. So again, a very well done figure all around. Now we'll go a little bit further up to the top here next to the Kid Flash. We have Jade. Now Jade is also a Green Lantern, and Jade is actually the daughter of Alan Scott, whom I mentioned earlier. She is also pre-posed in such a way that she does have movement in her arms. The head cannot really move left to right much due to the fact that she has quite a long sculpted hair that impedes any movement of the head, either right or left. And she is literally unable to stand on her own. She does require her plastic stand, so if you attempt to pose her on her own without a stand, and the stands can be pretty big, so I use smaller stands, she will just keel over and fall due to the fact that one of her feet is sculpted in a half movement pose, so the foot is bent. So it's impossible for her to stand on her own. The same goes for the Kid Flash. The way her feet are molded, so one of the feet is sort of in a walking or about to run stance, so she's unable to stand on her own, and also the fact that one of her legs is bent at the knee. So that's one thing that sometimes kind of annoyed me with DC Direct, when some of the figures are pre-posed in such a way that they cannot even stand straight without falling over or without requiring an actual plastic stand. So that's a little bit annoying, but still I like the figure. All these figures still look great. It's a sort of a minor nuisance about them not being able to stand on their own. But of course some of these other ones like Superman, Shazam, even Green Lantern and Magog, all these guys can stand on their own without a need for a plastic stand. So what do we have next here? We have Dick Grayson as a hero called Red Robin. So his costume looks quite different from his classic, and he was wearing a hood as well, and a completely new costume altogether. And then we have his daughter, which I didn't even know until I read the story that he actually has a daughter, at least in this version of the story. Her name is Nightstar. Now you're wondering who is the mother. So I guess you could pretty much tell just by looking at her face, and especially the eyes, which are green. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a little bit dark on my screen here. But yes, she is the daughter of, obviously, Robin, the Dick Grayson, and Starfire from the Teen Titans. So this is their daughter, according to the Kingdom Come story. Very nice figure. I like the way she came out. And the only thing is, would be nice if she had some articulated movement in the legs, because she's kind of, again, stuck in one particular stance. But it's okay, at least, if nothing else, she can stand on her own, so she will not fall over or just keel over due to her pre-posed. So moving along, the big guy here, you can already tell who this is. It's Hawkman. Now Hawkman looks very different from his usual humanoid appearance. In this case, he's more like a mutated human eagle, or hybrid between the two. And he is looking absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, he cannot stand on his own, so he does require support of a larger plastic stand. He does come with a spear that would go into this hand right here that has a hole in it. The only problem is the hole is too small for that spear to fit in, and knowing the fact that the DC Direct figures and some of their accessories can be very brittle, I already witnessed that over the years. I did not try to force the spear into it, but that spear would sort of kind of give him a little bit more balance for him to stand, hopefully without requiring the plastic stand. But since the hole in the hand was not properly molded, it's impossible to put the spear in there without breaking the spear, even if you try to push it by force. So he's a very large figure, a heavier one. Another thing that does look kind of awkward and weird is that he is very top heavy because of the wings, and the fact is that he looks like he's leaning forward, which is quite odd, which also makes it difficult for him to stand on his own. So being top heavy, especially with these wings, which are not removable, but they are brittle, so they could literally crack up very easily. And when I opened this one, there was some chipping at the back already, so I have to sort of handle him with some care and keep him in a box when I don't put him on a shelf. I preserved his box, by the way. So yeah, great figure, but with certain things that are not that good. But otherwise, a solid figure. So moving along, we have Spectre here, through whose eyes we're practically following the Kingdom Come story, where he has a long discussion with another character called Norman McKay, who is a pastor in the story, and his figurine came packed with Spectre, but the problem is I only managed to get Spectre because he was a loose figure when I got him, so I did not manage to get Norman McKay that came along with him. So very nicely done figure, but this time, of course, he looks more like a statue. There is definitely movement in the head left to right, so the hood doesn't make it difficult. You can move the arm, at least the uncovered arm you can, and he stands on a plastic stand. The thing is, there is no way to remove the cloak without just completely cutting it off, because underneath he has a regular body that does have movement in the legs and the other arm as well. So he was more sculpted for the effect of being almost like a statue rather than a fully articulated figure, which is a pity. I wish there was a way to simply be able to move him without damaging the cloak and without having to resort to cutting it. So since I'm not really willing to do that, I just display him as he is. I still like the way he came out. I just feel bad for him that he's unable to move much. So over here we have two versions of Wonder Woman that also appeared in the Kingdom Come story. On the right we have her classic look, and again the thing is she cannot stand on her own. In this case I just leaned her up against her counterpart there. She also came in Wave 1 together with Superman, and she does have some limited articulation. The legs cannot really move, but the arms could move up and down. The head, again, due to the hair sculpt, cannot. So again, it's more of a statue rather than a figure. Now, the Wonder Woman on the left came in a later wave, and she looks much better in my opinion, due to the fact that she can actually move her arms a bit more freely. And the fact is she comes with some accessories. She does come with the battle spear and a very neat looking shield, and this amazing looking battle armor that's in a shape of an eagle, and she even has a helmet that looks like eagle's head. So this is pretty much, by the way, I think the same costume that inspired the Wonder Woman's costume in the upcoming movie of Wonder Woman 1984. So this is how it looks in the Kingdom Come story, and the one in the movie is just slightly modified. Almost looks the same, but there is some differences. At least between the two toys there is some differences. Between this version and the Eagle version action figure done by McFarlane these days. If you guys have that figure, you can compare. I actually have that other one, but I could do a comparison of it another time. So yes, she's wearing a golden battle armor, and she looks amazing in my opinion. I wish the wings could move, but they can't, so they're just sculpted on. She does also comes with her lasso of truth, and by the way, the one on the right also comes with a lasso as well. So that's at least one accessory she does come with. So these are the two versions of Wonder Woman. Now at the back here, on the upper level, we have Batman. Now Batman in this story is also aged but he decided to get involved when things were sort of getting out of hand with the other side, led by Superman. So he comes up with this high-tech armor to help him continue the fight, and the large wings that represent his cape, and I guess a sort of a flying attachment as well, can be folded, so they can be opened up, as you see, and they can be also folded inward. And he does have some articulation, obviously, in the arms and legs. And the attachment, however, if I'm not mistaken, is not removable. Or at least I did not try to attempt it, because sometimes I just worried that I might actually break it if I try to forcefully remove it or just detach it. But anyway, so that's Batman. And then over here we have the last three characters that I have, and that would be let's start with the far left here. That would be the Blue Beetle. He comes with a scarab-shaped attachment that is attachable on his back, and it can be removed, but for some reason, in case of mine, he seems to be rather stuck. The scarab seems rather stuck on his back, and I'm not sure now how to remove it without actually breaking the piece. He does come with a spare set of actual wings that can be attached instead of that scarab, and the visor over his mouth can be moved up so that at least one can see the lower part of his face. He also came with a plastic stand, and he does have some basic, very basic articulation. Again, the legs is not part of that, but the arms could move a bit, and the head. And this figure, by the way, is part of the Kingdom Come, except it was released later on in the as a part of the DC Direct Elseworlds stories. So some of the Kingdom Come figures that you see here were not released as part of the main Kingdom Come line. They were sort of spread out in some of the other lines to kind of fill in the gaps of what was missing in the original line. Then over here, again through DC Elseworlds, DC Direct subline, Aquaman from Kingdom Come. And he is not wearing his classic costume. This is more his royal attire, which looks pretty neat. Now this trident I gave him is not really his, because I do not have his original trident, so I borrowed this trident from another Aquaman. I had a spare one. So I think it still does the trick. He can still hold on to it, and there is no problem for him to stand and even lean a bit onto the trident itself. So yes, he has quite an interesting costume that has a large emblem of a seahorse on his chest, on his tunic, and he seems to wear a sort of a crown on his head as well, and he has beard and mustache. He looks great, and he also has a green and red cape, which is not removable. And then the last character I have in this line would be the Flash. Now Flash here looks much different from his classic look, and the way he is, especially with that helmet with wings, he reminds me of Hermes from the Greek mythology, who was the messenger of Zeus and could also run really fast. So he looks more like a living energy, or almost like a speed force in humanoid shape. That's how he looks to me. This is translucent plastic, and he, most of all, compared to many of the other figures in this line, has pretty decent articulation, that nothing seems to be impeding him to move his legs and arms, and at least the head left to right. And he doesn't have tremendous number of details. He's just a sort of a plain figure, but still a neat looking one, and an interesting take on how would Flash look in this story. So that's all of them that I have at this point. I am, however, still missing about, let's see, 3 characters that I can think of that belong to the Kingdom Come line. So I am practically missing Norman McKay, the pastor who discusses the fate of the two warring sides. I'm also missing the Red Arrow, which I believe is Speedy, the sidekick of Green Arrow when he became an adult, and then he sided with one of the groups. And then the last one I'm missing would be the Deadman, a hero who looks, in this story, he looks more like a skeleton and has a red costume stretched over him. So yes, those are the only three that I'm still missing, but most of them, as you can tell, I already have. So what do I think about this line? I think it's a great line. Do not expect too much articulation out of it. Do expect some pretty decent sculpting, and do expect some very nicely done facial expressions. So that is all for me for now. Thanks, guys.